Hello Tamers, Sideraw back in day, and on to day 2 of our Decklist countdown towards BT23 Hacker Slimmer's release. With today's decklist and our penultimate decklist being Beelzemon following the new support he got in EX10. Given how, well, he is one of the faces of the set as a pretty iconic antagonist from Digimon Tamers. And before we get into it, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe and share this around to help with the algorithm. And without further ado, let's get the show on the road. And starting off with the egg deck, considering that's Beelzemon, it goes out saying that the advanced structure deck, Youngmon is pretty much king in terms of egg for the deck, since you pretty much really need this to ensure that you mill yourself fast enough to, well, reach your sweet spots. Since you get to mill yourself too every time you, well, swing with this stack being a wizard or demon lord trait. Though alternatively, you could choose to take in the Structure Deck 6 Pokemon for its on delete mill 2. Though, once again, Yaman still is king in the sense that you're readily having a mill 2 whenever you attack once return, thus leaving this as a need to be answered stack for your opponent unless they allow you to reach most of your sweet spots. Then going over Ricky lineup, goes without saying that ends up being one copy of EX2 Imp, a 3-3 split between Advanced Structure Deck Imp and EX10 Imp. And then for my own tech ratio, 1 BT19 Imp, and then 2 BT12 Imp X. Since, well, it goes without saying that EX2 is still pretty powerful for the deck, considering that it ends up being a searcher, with the added caveat, power of being able to mill you an additional 3 if it sees itself getting milled. Then, for the stack, for building stack wise, your Beelzemon stacks pretty much get an extra plus 2,000 during your turn. And then from there, Structure Deck Imp being able to, on attack, warp all the way into Beelzemon while you're staying at 20 or more for a cost of 3. In addition, granting a stack that you build off it, whenever it sees yourself getting milled, you get to delete one opposing level 3 Digimon. Then, going over finishing off the core really, is the new EX10 Imp as pretty much the go-to Imp you'd want to put into raising, since it has the star main to immediately mill yourself too. In addition, it also has the nifty mill effect to instantly instantly pop a level 4 lower Digimon on the opposing side if it ever sees itself being milled. Thus, you end up getting value from milling it. In addition, if you build a stack with this, you effectively get a, pretty useful DP climb effect, given that you get an additional 1000 DP on your turn for every 10 cards sitting in your trash. Thus, that ends up scaling down the line. Then, my tech pick of BT19 Imp being as a means to, cheat out a tamer while you're sitting at one of your tamers from trash when he comes out, as well as having the option to give yourself a retail inherit. And then to round off the rookie lineup is the 2 copies of Impex as a means to draw off of the X evolution. In addition, for the on-play 1 Digivolve, to immediately pitch away an option to recycle out a evil wizard or demon lord trait from trash. In addition, for the additional mill 2 on attack. As for other tech picks, there's still argument to include the good old BT2 imp for its on delete mill 3, though considering how the deck wants to pretty much find its balance between self milling and not overdoing it, a sort of pretty much, well, went for this even ground of, well, working with these imps instead, since you're pretty much pretty mill heavy going down the line as you climb. That's it for the rookie lineup. Now on to level 4s. And, well, goes without saying, ends up being 4 copies of the promo wizard for the 1 mil, gain 1 memory, in addition to stacking the top of your deck by revealing a purple card in hand to return top of the deck. Then, following that, is 2 copies of the new EX10 Beelzemon, which allows the deck to have some pretty more defensive plays, considering that on play in 1 Digivolve, you get to trash the top of your own security, and then additionally mill yourself too. Then you hit your opponent's Digimon with a blanket minus 2000 DP for the turn, thus being a pseudo ruin mode. Well, pretty much ruin mode light, really, considering that's at minus 3000 DP. It only lasts for the turn that you Digivolve into it. Though in addition, this was on when he sees himself getting milled or being trashed from security, well, by effect, you then get to hit one of your opposing Digimon with security attack -1, thus cushioning you from 1 security check. In addition, you also grant your stacks barrier, granting a bit of protection at the cost of security. And then the rounding off the wizard lineup is 3 copies of Wizard X as a form of extra draw off of the X evolution. In addition, being able, being a mill 2 on Digivolve, and then as an added bonus, if you have a wizard underneath, you're able to grant your stack blocker until the end of opponent's turn, thus granting the stack some use going into the opponent's turn, in addition to another on attack, mill 2 inherit. And that's it for the level 4 lineup. Now on to level 5s. Well, it's another obvious choice. With my build being a 4-2 split of the Advanced Structure deck ball and then the new EX10 Bogger Almir ball. Since both variations pretty much allow you to go into your Beelzemons that are sitting trashed, as long as you meet the 10 or more cards in trash condition of on delete, with both being able to mill top 3 off of evolution, though Structure Deck Ball here is definitely your go-to, considering that he grants the whole stack that on deletion effect to revive Beelzemon in trash, whereas EX10 Ball is just himself. With both granting a DP climb for the deck, the ball, Structure Deck Ball is just a straight straight plus 2000 DP, whereas the X10 Ball here is another case of climbing based off of scaling based off of cards in trash as another additional 1000. And that's it for the level 5 lineup. Now on to level 6s as the main course. And for me, I decided to go for a 2-2-1-1 split for regular BLZ, and then 2 copies of BLZX. Well, going over it, goes without saying that EX6 ends up being your go-to revive ball from trash, revive BLZ from trash, Since it ends up being a rush body, in addition, on play on Digivolve, you immediately mill top 4. Then, while you have 10 or more cards sitting in trash, you get to hit one opposing Digimon with Digivolve 2. Thus, you could make some counterplays if you chose to keep ball going into the opponent's side, well, opponent's turn, and they choose to get rid of ball, well, by deleting it, thus having this come out, and you immediately hit your opponent with minus, well, with a Digivolve 2 to, well, lessen blows. Well, Advanced Structure deck, Beelzy here, is the main bruiser of the deck, considering that on Digivolve, you get to mill 4, and then during all turns, whenever he sees cards being trashed from being milled, you get to gain 1 for every 10 cards in your trash. Thus ends up being a, well, unique point depending on how board state it is, since if they choose to leave this alone and you have a ball that blows up and then, well, floats into EX6 BLZ, you effectively can steal turn based off how many cards you have in trash, at least stealing back 1 memory. Then, for how my tech ratios are, the inclusion of the 1 EX2 BLZ here is a bit of play off of, well, all the Itmons that we have to work with. Since, if he gets milled, you're able to revive out a Itmon from trash while paying the memory, thus setting up for further plays going into your turn if that Itmon just so happens to live. And then, pretty much, well, for your, well, turn plays, if you ever mill this during the opponent's turn, though for obviously reasons, you also could use it just to revive the Searcher Imp. Then from there, its normal use as a stack builder on Digivolve and when attacking with no once return clause, you're able to mill top 2 to then delete 1 opposing level 3 or lower. And then for every 10 cards in trash, you get to add 1 to the maximum level that you get to blow up. Then, following that is the new blood for the deck, being the new Beelzemon Ace, thus giving the deck a bit of a blast evolution option in the form of this pretty powerful card, well, decently powerful card really, since on play, when Digivolve and when attacking with no once return clause, you're able to mill top 2 cards off your deck, then delete 1 opposing Digimon that's play cost 6 or lower. Then additionally, for every 10 cards sitting in trash, you get to add 3 to the play cost maximum. In addition, on Digivolve and on play, while you're sitting at 10 or more cards in trash, you're able to return 2 non-Digivolve cards from trash to top of deck to also hit a opposing Digimon with Digivolve 2. And considering how those effects lined up for on play or when Digivolving, you could choose to sequence it so that you end up sacking the top 2 cards of your deck to then, well, trigger off a Digivolve 2, and then immediately mill yourself for the on-play 1 Digivolving to then, well, pop something on the opponent's side. Most of the time, pretty much Digivolving down into effective range for the popping effect. And this guy becomes a pretty nasty annoyance on board, considering that you're constantly milling yourself to, well, being able to constantly mill yourself at least 4 times, barring conditions on how you, well, on Digivolving. Since if you manage, if you manage to keep turn when you Digivolve into him, you've effectively can mill 4 to pretty much reach upper thresholds. Then following that is the 2 copies of BLZX to pretty much be, well, more aggro, considering that on Digivolve, you're able to trash top opponent security for every 10 cards saying you're trash, burning at least 1, all the way up to 3 to 4-ish. In addition, on Delete, you're able to then revive a Impmon name from trash to paying the cost, thus allowing you to restart building, and even more so if you choose to again revive into Structure Deck Imp if this ever gets deleted on the opponent's side, and that Imp survives going into your turn. That's it for level 6s. Now on to level 7, which for this deck ends up being the one copy of the Advanced Structure Deck, Beelzemon Blast Mode. Being on Digivolve, getting to allow himself to unsuspend, and then be able to gain back 3 memory if he sees that you are staying at 20 or more memory, thus making his evolution be a 1-cost evolution. Though the other option still stands, that you could choose to run the BT19 Blast Mode Ace instead, being able to blast into it with the on-play and on-digital effect to delete 1 level 6 or lower Digimon, with the effect going to any Digimon if you're sitting at 2 or more cards in trash. With when attacking, to return 10 non-Digi cards to top deck, to then burn 1 security. Though, for obvious reasons, on non-inclusion being the instances where you would have to put an ace on top of your ace. Thus, it sort of puts you at a pretty critical point if that stack ever gets outed. Hence why I chose not to include Blast Mode Ace into the deck. And that's it for the Digimon lineup. Now on to Tamers, which ends up being the go-to, being the Advanced Strategic Ainmako as your main tamer. Since once you hit the board, you're immediately able to search and add 1 Evil, Wizard Trait, or Demon Lord Digimon, and then bot deck the rest. And then from there on, whenever your Digimon digitals into a purple Digimon, you get to submit them down and set a top deck and gain 1 memory, thus allowing you to stack the deck before you trigger off the Digivolution effects of your Digimon, thus allowing you to set up and forego a bit of randomness. Though for other options, you could choose to run the BT19 Mako, who ends up giving you memory as long as the opponent has a Digimon board. And then, during your main phase, while you're sitting at 20 or more cards in trash, by spinning them down, you get to have one of your Hitmon Digivolve warp all the way up into a Beelzemon from hand or trash by paying a cost of 4 while ignoring all requirements. Though that also is dependent on a number of factors in usefulness. Hence why I pretty much sort of keep it as a tech option. Then rounding off our decks are the option cards. Opening up with utility for the deck ends up being a 4-1 split between Wisdom Training and Purple Scramble, since you end up using these mostly as a means to help ramp, with Purple Scramble here definitely being of needed use as another form of preventing yourself from being decked out. Since if you end up seeing yourself in the tight spot of pretty much no cards going into your turn, you choose to pop it once it's established on board to then add a card from trash into the top of your deck, to prevent yourself from losing by deck out. And then from there, for BLZ options, it's a 3-3-1 split between Deathslinger, Rival's Barrage, and 7th Full Circle. With Deathslinger also being another 1 mil gain 1 memory effect. In addition, being able to delete, for its main effect, delete opposing level 4 lower, with the effect scaling by 1 for every 10 cards in trash. As well as being a security bomb by triggering off that main effect as well. Then Rival's Barrage here being used for its 1 milled effect. Since when milled, it gets to place itself into Bellarium. For that, you could then trigger off a delay to pretty much return one Digimon, well, one purple Digimon or one Tamer from trash to hand in place of itself. Addition, it ends up being another form security bomb. If you choose to hard play it, delete one opposing Digimon at the highest level, with that also being its security effect. And then goes without saying for 7 Full Cluster being in here, pairing with the BLZX. Since, for its main effect, delete opposing Digimon at this level, and then whenever it sees you Digivolve into BLZX while it's singing trash, you get to return to bot deck and then hit another opposing Digimon with the lowest level again. As well as pretty much preventing yourself from decking out, since it will bottom deck itself as well. Though, for other options, you could choose to fit in the, well, archetypal scramble, really. Well, sort of speaking. Being Bonds of True Love. Since whenever it sees itself being trashed from deck, it plays itself. With its main effect being to top deck, well, to mill 2. It also plays itself in the battle area. With the Star main delay effect to, well, revive an Imon from trash without paying the cost. Though, for obvious reasons, Scramble still wins out since you end up speeding the climb up, as well as preventing yourself from decking yourself out. And that's it for the deck itself. Now on to combos. And then before going to combos, let's go over the starting hand first. Since it goes without saying that you don't want to see, well, in this case, at least one of your rookies, preferably anything but the BT19 one, since you at least get some form of benefit down the line. And then definitely want to see an Iron Mako in hand to get them established on board first. Since once you've done that, you then get to start playing around with the deck shenanigans by constantly stacking the top deck and gaining back 1 memory on each evolve, and seeing training and scramble, since you're on, well, searchable stuff that you pretty much don't want to see sitting in trash, since you have barely any ways to get them back. And then from there, secondary is obviously the rest of your climbing materials, and then Deathslinger and Rose Barrage to, well, have them be set up in trash via, well, set up as top decks to mill via Iron Mako. Then from there, it's pretty much then seeing either BLZ go into, preferably structure deck BLZ to pretty much draw aggro, with BLZ Ace definitely coming in clutch situations, since again it also can revive off of the ball, well, both balls' effects. Granted, you get more mileage off of the structure deck ball. Then, pretty much from there, BLZX to burn And then Beelzemon Ace as your closer, and then 7th full cluster and BT19 imps as, well, discard fodder, respectively. And now on to combos. Going into combos, the deck's pretty much straightforward since it still follows the normal game plan for the deck. Then now you pretty much end up working on a much more faster timescale with the inclusion of the EX10 imp, since once you push out from raising, once you've set a Shining Knocko, you practically pretty much are able to set up most of your mill plays early on. Since again, imp will immediately trash 2, well, mill 2, and then it's all based off your mills from there. Then it's pretty much then your climb, either going into imp X for additional draw and possible pitching for piece, well, pitching then recycling these, either wizards, with the EX10 wizard definitely being the go-to, since you effectively, well, send an extra 3 cards to trash, one off of the, well, security, well, self-security burn for the blanket minus 3000 on the opponent's side, and the additional 2 mil. Then, or also Wizard X, since it's also a 2 cost evolution with an extra 2 mil cost, well, 2 mil on Digivolve. And once again, another case of either spinning the roulette or choosing to use Iron Mako to stack the deck with any card in your deck that has a mill effect. Then just continue to climb into your balls. That actually, well, as inspected, sound weird. Well, let's continue on. Since once you've established them, that's an additional 3 mil. And then they have their respective effects. Since you could either, well, depending on how memory looks, pass turn with EX10 ball on board to be a blocker body, or if you keep turn, swing with the ability to reboot if it survives, and then structure ball, granting the whole stack, the on delete, thus allowing you to climb further or also throw it into the opponent's security to then trigger off your all inherits as well. Then from there, pretty much digivolving based off of situation and how the board state looks. Since you could either go into structure deck BLZ or EX2 BLZ as main lines, or blast into BLZ Ace, and then pretty much you could optionally go into EX6, though you'd want to pretty much make use of the revival effect off a ball and then be able to rush in with that BLZ if need be. Then it's pretty much just, well, pretty much being a bruiser with structure deck BLZ as your main form of heavy hitters, since you'll be guaranteeing the stack sec +1, swing in, digivolve into BLZX, burn away based off for every 10 cards in trash, and then if you could, depending on things look, go into blast mode to, well, finish up the job really, considering that most of the time you at least now get to reach at least 20 pretty early once you are able to go into BLZX. Thus, you get to set up and push aggro a bit more faster now. Since, well, the whole deck is still wholly reliant on your milling. And thus, you also put yourself on that timer, considering that, again, you do have to be mindful of how much you mill yourself, lest you end up in some very bad situations where you end up decking out. Hence, we have the fixers of Rivals Garage being able to find your pieces, and then Purple Scramble, and the likes of Sevenfold Cluster to ensure that you don't deck out, with Promo Wizardmon also being a means to prevent deck out, since you're returning a card to top deck. But overall, that has been my look at Beelzemon in the EX10 format, with the deck definitely feeling a lot more powerful than it was prior, considering that now you've tempoed up your game plan. But yep, overall, that has been my look of the EX10 Beelzemon deck. And well, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to keep up with videos as we come to the end of this decklist countdown towards BT23 Hacker Slumber's release. And this is Cyberjaws signing off.